Ladies and gentlemen, I'm calling to order this special town meeting this evening, February 3rd, 2016. The first order of business is to elect a moderator for tonight's meeting. Do I hear? What?
Nominate Bruce Farmer.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any other nominations from the floor that you'd like to make?
Move they be closed.
Okay. Okay, now I need a motion to declare myself as the moderator this evening.
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
In favor? Aye. Wow, that was pretty loud. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Now I will have the clerk read the call for this evening. Look at you. You don't need the microphone, do you?
Legal notice, Town of Clinton, special town meeting. The electors of the Town of Clinton and all other citizens qualified to vote in town meetings of said Town of Clinton are hereby notified and warned that a special town meeting will be held at 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday, February 3rd, 2016 at the William Stanton Andrews Memorial Town Hall, 54 East Main Street, Clinton, Connecticut, to hear and consider the following. Resolved, to accept a small town economic assistance program, STEAP, in the amount of $500,000 for facility upgrades and improvements to the Ethel Peters Complex. Resolved, to accept funding in the amount of $500,000 over a 5-year period for the Department of Mental Health, from the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. Resolved, to accept $250,000 Unilever Settlement to be used for the proposed shellfish restoration, farm share, and education program, and for the closure of the town's septic lagoons. Resolved, to approve the sale of 61 East Main Street, MBL 5661 8A, the Academy Building, to the First Church of Christ Congregational Church for $1. Dated at Clinton, Connecticut, the 20th of January 2016. Bruce N. Farmer, First Selectman. Published in the Harbor News on January 14, 2016.
Thank you very much. Now I need a motion to approve the legal call this evening for this special town meeting.
So moved.
Wow, this passed. Seconded?
Second.
Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, now we'll have to have the moderator, me, read each resolution separately, and then we'll make motions on each and every one separately. Unless Peter Neff tells me I have to do something else. Notice how he's standing in the back of the room back there, ready to correct me if need be, which I appreciate. Okay, the first resolution, resolved to accept the Small Town Economic Assistance Program, which is a STEAP grant, in the amount of $500,000 for facility upgrades and improvements to the Ethel Peters Complex. Now I need a motion to accept that resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Second?
Second.
What are they doing?
Any discussion at this point?
What's happening?
I'm glad you asked. I can make a little comment here myself if
I'd
you'd
like to
like.
know what I'm voting for.
Sure, I'm glad you asked. And he's awake too. The town was awarded this $500,000 grant for the Peters Complex. The grant was originally intended for improvements to the football field and upgrades to the existing concession and lavatory area and adding team rooms. The grant will be turned over to the Park and Recreation Commission for recommendations, and then it will actually be assigned to the Municipal Building Committee. So
Thank you.
that's what's going on there. Any other discussion at this point? Okay.
When you say it's going to be turned over to a municipal building committee, does that mean that this grant can be used for any other purpose besides the Ethel Peters Complex?
No.
No.
Absolutely not.
It cannot. If Pete wants to expound on that.
All the municipal building committee does is we execute, probably the wrong choice of words, we carry out the STEAP grant, but it has to be used exactly for the purpose that it is stated. Any modification has to be approved by the state. It will be used to upgrade the concession stand and hopefully construct a team area for halftime at the facility. That's all it'll be used for.
Okay. If there's nothing further, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Okay, next resolution is resolved to accept funding in the amount of $500,000 over a 5-year period from the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. Now I need a motion to accept that resolution.
So moved.
Thank you. Any second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that? I'd be glad to add a little something there. The Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services awarded the town of Clinton funding in the amount of $500,000 over 5 years to support services implemented in Clinton under the Connecticut Strategic Prevention Framework Coalition Initiative. That's a mouthful. The Human Services is a Human Services Department grant. And if we have any further questions on that, that would be fine. Everybody okay? All right. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, the next resolution is to accept $250,000, which is the Unilever Settlement, to be used for the proposed shellfish restoration, farm share, and education program for the closure and for the closure of the town's septage lagoons. This is part of a grant that we are splitting 50-50 with the town of Madison. Each town is awarded $250,000. And the funds can only be used for projects that directly affect the waters that were impacted by the pollution discharge by Unilever while they were occupying that facility. In July of 2016, the DEP accepted the town's proposals to use the funds for a shellfish restoration, farm share, and educational program, and to complete the closure of the lagoons. The shellfish restoration, which is primarily an oyster farming farm share program, is a farm share and educational project. And it would be allocated a total of $77,000, and the remaining funds are allocated for performing the closure of the town's lagoons, which I believe are pretty dry right now. Need a motion to accept that resolution?
So moved.
Thank you. Seconded? Okay. Any further discussion on that? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Now let's see, the next resolution is to approve, did we do those three? Yeah, we did. 4. Okay, this is the one I think that most of you are here tonight. To approve the sale of 61 East Main Street, MBL 56/61-8A, which is, in other words, the Academy Building, to the First Church of Christ Congregational Church for the sum of $1. Do we have a motion to accept that resolution?
Second.
Second, please.
Second.
Any discussion?
Could you explain that a little bit to some of the people who haven't? are not members of the Congregational Church, maybe they don't know what they'll be here voting on and so forth. We've heard a lot about it in the church, but the people who don't belong to our church may not have heard too much about it, and if they're going to vote on it, they should know something about it.
Sure. Well, I'll start off by saying the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance approved the sale of the Academy building back to the Congregational Church for $1. It turns out that I refer to them as covenants. That may not be the proper term, but in the covenants of the Academy building and the relationship it's had historically with the church, there is paperwork there that says that the church, the Congregational Church, actually has the first right of refusal. So when the town of Clinton decided to sell the Academy building, the first opportunity for that had to be given to the Congregational Church. And they promptly waved their hand and said, yes, we would be very interesting to take on the stewardship of that wonderful historic building, which needs a bit of work, but it has great potential. And that's really why we're all here tonight. If the Reverend would like to add anything to that, please do.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
It can be rather brief.
No, I'll be very brief. Thank you all very much for coming out. This is indeed an historic night. It's very exciting for those of us who are members and friends associated with the First Church of Christ. This really started back in 1976 when the town approved a negotiation between the church and the town to exchange property. I'm not going to be in the Harbor News again, am I? I'm going to talk to you.
And please, Harbor News, get it right.
Yeah, no, it did. You always do. So back in 1976, there was a town meeting on July 6th, 2 days after the bicentennial, to approve the transfer of property. Our church transferred 13.87 acres of property around Clinton Town Beach. If you don't like that anymore, we'll be very happy to take it back. In exchange for property up on top of Meeting House Hill, so that we could put our two buildings together. And we also clarified all of the boundaries between the academy and the church, which for centuries really had not been clear. So the town did approve this back in 1976, and we gave each other first right of refusal on the properties. Is that brief?
That is right.
So thank you all very much for your support. I have the dollar right here in my...
Is it a silver dollar? Just thought it would be in keeping with it. Okay, I want to hear this loud and clear. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Opposed?
Nay.
Abstained? What? A nay? One nay. Note that. One nay. Like a horse. Okay. All right. Motion carries. Thank you very much. You have yourself a nice building.
Thank you very much.
Now I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Seconded. Those in favor? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.